you. Thank you. So welcome you all during this Mexico weekend. If you haven't seen the program, it's outside on our desk, and I certainly encourage you to look through it. There's also a little plug for our exhibition upstairs, Deco Luxury to Mass Market. It's open free to all of you who are attending our Deco weekend. So certainly if you finish up today and want to see the galleries, you may. There's also 2 other exhibitions on view, so certainly take the time to see the Wilsonian. One of the exhibitions is from our sister institution in Genoa. And recognizing that, we have started a film series, and on February 3rd is our next film at the Miami Beach Cinematheque. It's Italian style on screen. We're showing a 1955 film called The Girlfriend. Then Sylvia Vettacioni there will be the tour guide at 5 o'clock, and she's our curator. And we certainly welcome you to see that and be a part of it. If you are not a member of either MDPL or the Wilsonian or both, I encourage that. We are member-supported organizations. Since I'm the development director, our revenue model is all of you, much like on Channel 2. So that's important to know. We were having a lot of cell phones going off in the earlier program, so if your cell phone is on or active, you know the drill. Just try to mute that, put it on vibrate, or at least if you're expecting a call, have it nearby so you can get that call quickly, I guess. I'm delighted to be able to introduce Don Worth, and I'm going to say both he and his wife, Nina, if you don't know them personally, are people that do what's right, what's noble, and what's necessary. Whether it's in Shanghai or Virginia Key or right here on Miami Beach, they have been at the center of activity around preservation. I put some words down: imaginative, adaptive reuse, artistic inspiration, and of course important preservation work. So there's no better forum than Art Deco weekend to have Don speak about the Miami Marine Stadium and the endeavors he's been doing for over a decade. But their decades of involvement in our community is well deserved of our praise, and we are glad they're here today. So Don, it's your floor. Enjoy the talk, everyone.
Can you help me dim the lights? Can you hear me? Yes. Michael is one of these incredibly effective people who does amazing things quietly, like the event you did last weekend at the Wilsonian, or our Shanghai project where you nonchalantly told us you had raised all the money for it. And Nina and I, to echo what Michael has said, we love this museum. This is our Cheers Museum. We're here all the time. And we really recommend you join. And I'd also love to give a plug for Miami Design Preservation League. Everything around you is really due to them. And my wife, Nina, who is head of membership. And membership in this organization is so important right now at a time where we have a lot of development interest. Some of them are good and they want to work with preservationists, and some of them don't. And we need a strong organization. And this organization right now is very much on the move. You know that if you saw the Marion Del Vecchio exhibit that opened last week. It seems almost every week there's a new partnership opportunity. And I would especially urge you to join as a member now, today or tomorrow, because there is a membership special. You will get a great gift if you join. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You'll have to go to Nina or go to the membership table on 10th Street, and it's half price. I mean, it's a really great gift, but I'm not going to tell you. Trust me, you will be happy. So please consider it and help strengthen this organization. So I just want to start with just a couple of housekeeping issues. I'd like to see a show of hands. Who here would like to see the Marine Stadium get restored? Okay, a lot of people. Well, there is something you can do very simply. We have a Facebook page called Restore Marine Stadium. Please sign up for our Facebook page. This movement has been people-powered. We don't have David Beckham or a big developer. The only reason we have gotten any place is because when we've needed support, we've had a strong outpouring, and we will call on you. So to get updates, go to Restore Marine Stadium on Facebook, like it. We post about once a week. We try to be informative and friendly and fun, and you'll know what's going on and know when you can help. Secondly, and this is the 102nd time I've done this presentation over the last 9.5 years. I really enjoy it. If you like it, come up to me afterwards. Maybe you know of an organization, an arts group, an environmental group, a business group. It's so important to get the word out in terms of this building, and I'm delighted to make presentations. They can be as long or as short or as necessary. One question for people. If I can see a show of hands, who went to events at the Marine Stadium? Okay, a few people. What are some of the things that you did?
Jimmy Buffett.
Jimmy Buffett. What else?
Boxing.
Boston Pops.
Boxing. Boston Pops. Anything else? What?
Boat racing.
Boat racing, yes. Well, I never went. Nina and I, we never went to a Marine Stadium event. We didn't get here, actually, till after it closed in 1992. But what we learned from talking to so many people is that this is a magical place. It's a special place. People get emotional when they talk about it. We're not really talking here about just preserving a building and the architecture. We're talking about reinventing a place where people can have literally life-changing moments. If the Marine Stadium were a horse race, it would be the trifecta. The architecture gives it the wow, the history gives it its soul, and the future is bright as anything as you can imagine. But all of the efforts we've done in trying to restore this building, we've had so many ups and downs. It would also be the story of a great American movie, which is success, failure, and redemption. So settle back. If you're familiar with the stadium, this is going to be looking at your past. But this presentation is really not about the past, it's about a future, and it's about how you can enjoy this place. So we're going to start now. If I can make this thing work. Where do I point this?
Anywhere.
Anywhere, okay. Maybe I'm not listening. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. The left one? Right, okay. So we're going to start now with the architecture, because the Marine Stadium is really admired by architecture fans from around the world. And by the time we finish, we fully expect it's going to be considered on the same plane as the Sydney Opera House, a great building that symbolizes really a great city. So what is it that makes it so special? To answer that question, I have to give you a 45-second lecture on modern architecture. In the 20th century, architecture changed more than it had in the previous 5,000 years. Why is that? Use of new building materials, concrete, glass, and stone, and steel. The idea that less is more, form follows function, and elimination of ornamentation. And in the 1920s, there was an architect named Le Corbusier. Oops. All right, there we are. He was a French architect, and he loved experimenting with concrete. He built wooden forms on the site, and he poured the concrete into those forms, and he created very, very sculptural buildings. He was followed by an Italian architect named Luigi Nervi, a Mexican architect named Felix Candela, a Finnish architect named Eero Saarinen. In the 30s, 40s, and 50s, there were a series of sports stadiums built in Europe and in Latin America, all of concrete, all very sculptural, and the Marine Stadium comes from that tradition. Well, the stadium was built in 1963 designed in 1963 by Felix Candela, who really exemplified the Miami experience. He was 27 when he designed it. He was educated at the University of Havana and at Georgia Tech. Of course, the thing when people think about the stadium that they really know is the roof. In mid-century architecture, you have what's called a cantilever. Cantilever is an overhang. It's what makes these mid-century buildings look so sleek and modern. Well, look at that cantilever. It's not a 3 or 4 foot long cantilever, it's 56 feet wide. It's more like a span of an alligator's jaws. Not only was the Marine Stadium wide, but it was long. And at 326 feet, when it was built, it was the longest span of cantilevered concrete in the world. Not only was it wide and long, but, if I can get this thing to work properly, it was complicated because the Marine Stadium roof is a double-sided row of hyperbolic paraboloids. Now, if you want to know what a hyperbolic paraboloid is, look it up in Wikipedia and your eyes will glaze over after the second sentence. Here's all you need to know. Take a piece of paper, put your thumb in the middle of it. It creates a shape that has rounded edges and straight edges. That's a hyperbolic paraboloid. Well, buildings get built for many different reasons, and the Marine Stadium got built for a very different reason. In the 1950s and 60s, Miami was a center for boat racing, but there was a problem. When the boat racers were in Biscayne Bay, they would bump into coconuts, and when you did that, you could really flip. In addition, there was no place to watch the race, so there was this momentum developed to try to figure a way to turn boat racing into a tourist attraction. Well, there was a guy named Mel Reese, who was a city manager at the time, who was described to me by the former Miami Maurice Ferre as like a, quote, benevolent military dictator from a Caribbean island nation. And he came up with this nutty idea to build a stadium. But if you were going to build a stadium, you also had to build the, I am not doing very well with this. I'm going to ask you, Nita, to do the flicking.
Okay, we have to go back.
Okay, there we are. Okay. But in order to build the stadium, you also had to build the race course. This is Virginia Key, the 1947 photo. So what the city did in 1962 is they basically went to this area, and for $2 million, they dredged out a race course, and they built a stadium. So when you see here, here's the site. This is the early 50s and from the same vantage point. And here is the, whoops, I'm really having difficulty. Okay, I'll just say next. Okay, back one. Okay, back, wrong way. No, wrong way. You're going the wrong way. You're going the other way, dear. Going wrong way. Okay, we're getting there. Keep going. Okay, so here we are. So here is the area where the stadium was, and you can see where the stadium is on right now is it's dredged, and then it's sitting on a landfill. Next. So here is the race course. It's 6,000 feet long by 1,200 feet wide. You can put the Washington Mall inside it, also Central Park. You can see that island up to the left. That's actually the Spoil Island, which was a center for 3 different race courses. That indentation down there, that was the pit area. Now, the stadium is in the shape of an elongated oval. And if you think that shape is vaguely familiar to you, next slide. Well, you're right, because it's modeled directly on the Circus Maximus in Rome. This is where Ben-Hur raced the chariots. It's not the Colosseum, it's nearby. The Circus Maximus still exists, although those buildings around it don't. The only difference is that our aquatic Circus Maximus is actually 3 times larger than this one. Next. Well, the real heroes of our story are the engineer and the workman. The stadium was actually conceived as an engine. Back, please. The stadium was back. That's it. Okay, you had it? That's it. The stadium was conceived of as an engineering project, and a firm named Dignam Engineers got the job. There were 6 engineers in the firm. 5 of them turned down the job, and a guy named Jack Meyer was stuck with it. Jack said this was the most difficult engineering project he did in his life. Remember, this is before the ages of computers and CAD/CAM, and there are all these swoops and curves. He was interviewed in a design magazine a few years ago. You've never seen so many cuss words in the magazine. These are the forms. Remember, this is poured-in-place concrete. These are the wooden forms upon which the concrete was poured. And these are photos taken by one of the construction workers. Next. Well, the work was miserable and hot. Here they are, the workmen were on the roof, and Jack said that the workmen on this job were the best workmen in the city. They took great pride in what they do. They actually came to his office on a Friday afternoon with a 40-foot-long roll of butcher paper laying out all of the rebar. Rebar, the metal reinforcing rods, because they really wanted to get it right. By the way, they used galvanized rebar in the roof, almost unheard of. And that's why that roof is in a lot better shape than people think. Next. Well, the stadium design was actually sort of a combination of the odd couple. You had Hilario Candela, the architect artiste from Havana, and you had Jack Meyer, the straight-laced engineer from North Carolina. Jack said that Hilario drove him crazy with all of his changes. And even here, with this beautiful base where these three columns meet, Hilario wanted to put a big hole in the middle of it as a design element. It would have been fine structurally, but Jack and the contractor said, "We can't stand it anymore. You're not getting your hole." Next. Next. So here's Jack, and the first time I spoke to him, which was almost 11 years ago, I asked him, was the stadium damaged by Hurricane Andrew? He got angry at me. He said, no, the stadium wasn't damaged by the hurricane. I designed that building to last 100 years. It's not going to fall down, and if they blow it up, it'll all come down in one piece. Jack was so proud of the work he did. He told me that when they loaded the roof, which was a wooden form with concrete, he thought it would dip by 18 inches. It only dipped by 6 inches. And as part of his guesswork on the roof, this is why this project was so difficult, there are 5 different grades of concrete, from coarse to thin. He had to figure out when to stop one and when to start the other. It was all guesswork. He's standing next to Nathan Brown, a student of the School of Engineering at Princeton University. Princeton has made a cottage industry of studying this building. Nathan wrote his thesis on it. It won multiple awards. And the basic point of Nathan's thesis was that Jack Meyer over-engineered this building, made it stronger than it needed to be. Next. So I'm going to show you some views of Miami back in the 60s. It's pretty amazing. Next. By the way, the roof is sort of curved on both sides. It's just the angle of the camera there. Hilario very lyrically wanted that roof to mirror the waves of the ocean, or the sails of a sailboat. He was really inspired when he visited the Dulles Airport Terminal by Sheraton in Washington, D.C. You can see also, by the way, that row of Australian pines that was planted on the other side of the basin. They now have grown up. They were an important windbreak for boat racers, and now they're a very important windbreak for rowers. Next. Old angle of the stadium. Next. So what's interesting about the Marine Stadium is it's actually the first green stadium. This was another study done for us by Princeton University. They calculated that basically Hilario Candela designed this building so that all of the seats are in shade from 12 o'clock on all day, all year round. Between that and the fact that it's open from 4 sides and picks up the breeze from the water, the average temperature in the stadium is actually 10 degrees cooler than the air around it. So you can be in Miami on a baking hot day and you're perfectly comfortable at the stadium. And the seats are so elevated, the sight lines are great. Next. 1/3 of this building is built over the water. 1/3 of the seats are built over the water. This is not something you could do today. The stadium would be really set back. It's also why the views are so great of any event on the water. Next. Anybody know what this building is? Correct. This is the Tropicana nightclub in Havana. Undoubtedly the most famous nightclub in the world. The inspiration for all of Las Vegas. They have lavish floor shows in the 50s and 60s. The inspiration for Studio 54. Frank Sinatra, Nat King Cole played here. The great Cuban singer Benny Murray played here. He was an alcoholic, but he refused to get drunk. Hilario Candela, when he was young, he was here, he saw Josephine Baker. But it's also significant from an architectural point of view. This is called the Arcos de Cristal, which is ribbons alternating of concrete and glass. This is poured-in-place concrete. It was designed by Max Borges Jr., a Cuban architect who passed away a few years ago. Next. And here's the Marine Stadium roof, and that's significant because Hilario Candela apprenticed with Max Borges Jr. So you can say there's a direct lineage from this building to the most famous modern building in pre-Castro Havana. But remember, the engineering work was done by Jack Meyer. Jack was Commodore of Biscayne Bay Yacht Club, the oldest organization in Miami, founded by Commodore Ralph Middleton Monroe. This is the Ralph Middleton Monroe Marine Stadium. So as now we have all these architects coming from all over the world to build buildings, the Marine Stadium is a purely Miami building. Next. So let's get to some of the things that happened here. Well, before there were the Marlins, Dolphins, and Heat, before there were 500 channels on television, on cable TV, there was boat racing. Boat racing was the sport in Miami. And Miami was the boat racing capital of the United States, and the stadium was the best place in the world to watch a boat race. Next. So a boat race could last for 5 laps. It could also last for 9 hours. This is the Mike Gordon 225, named after the seafood restaurant. What this is what's called a modified Le Mans start. All of the boats are lined up at the bottom of the basin. They're actually plugged into batteries. The gun goes off. The flag goes down. People on the beach pull out the plugs of the batteries from the boats, and off they go. Next. Okay, well, there are 15 different classes of race boats. There is inboards, there's outboards, there are stock boats, there are modified boats. The inboard boats, by the way, can only turn to the left. That's why the courses run counterclockwise. Those cranes are the lift the boats in and out of the water. Next. But the boats that everybody remembers are the unlimited hydroplanes. Unlimited because you could do anything to them. They were originally powered by World War II aircraft engines, Allisons or Rolls-Royces, and they made a racket. They were called the Thunderboats. Now they're powered by jet engines, the jets from the Chinook helicopter. Next. Well, boat racing was, and still continues to be, although not as badly, a very dangerous sport. This is the triple flip. It's part of a sequence of the most famous photographs in boat racing history. It happened at the Marine Stadium. You see people going into the water there. Miraculously, nobody got hurt. But plenty of people did get hurt. On turn 1, at least 5 boat racers died. Notice, by the way, that the engines, those are Mercury engines. Mercury Marine is the name in boat racing. If you go onto their website, this is what's on there. And Carl Kiekhaefer, who is the legendary founder of Mercury Marine, very, very famous in boating and automobile circles, was actually at the Marine Stadium and helped plan opening night. Well, next. Well, any sport that was this dangerous would attract risk takers and pirates and characters. And we had plenty of them at the Marine Stadium. This is Buddy Plumo, who was the president of Yes Bank, hence the name Second Mortgage. And Buddy really didn't care about winning, but he was a showman. So what he used to do is he would drive his boat as close to the stadium as he could. These E-class boats kicked up a huge amount of spray, and people would hang on the rail to get wet. Next. And this was sort of happened at the stadium. This is Queenie the water skiing elephant. Queenie was the spokes elephant for Mercury Marine, and the tagline went, Mercury Marine, strong enough to tow an elephant, but cost peanuts to operate. Well, what happened here basically was that Queenie was brought in for an Orange Bowl regatta, but it took him an extra 20 minutes to get the elephant up on water skis. At this point, they had already started a boat race, and I interviewed one of the boat racers of the year, Buddy Byers, who said he remembered this day because he rounds turn 1, and he looks up and he sees a water skiing elephant heading directly towards him. I just asked Buddy, well, how did you feel? And he just said, I just wanted to have a drink. Next. Well, boat racing wasn't enough to sustain this place, so Mel Reese came up with another one of his crackpot ideas, which was to get a floating stage. So the city bought a barge for $63,000. They moored it across the way, and they towed it in front of the stadium, and they began doing concerts. Initially, classical music, the Miami Philharmonic, the Boston Pops, Peter Nero, Mitch Miller. You could see there was a gangplank there. Then they began to move on to more progressive things, jazz, Benny Goodman, Cab Calloway, Herbie Mann, Stan Kenton next. And at these events, the stage would be surrounded by boats next. And it was really quite a scene. The people in the boats would look at the people in the stands, and I read an article in the Chicago Sun-Times that said, no flushing, no fishing, no barbecuing during the race. Next. Many things happened here. There was a campaign rally. This is where Sammy Davis Jr. famously hugged Richard Nixon. 4th of July concerts with Marvin Hamlish. Easter sunrise services next. Of course, boxing and wrestling, the Dundee brothers, who managed Cassius Clay / Muhammad Ali, did these events. The wrestler Dusty Rhodes got thrown into the water next. Of course, the rock concerts were absolutely wild. There'd be people in the water. You had Steppenwolf and Molly Hatchet. Leonard Skinner almost caused a riot. I've heard so many stories. I think my favorite one was there was Dave Brubeck at his son's concert, and there was a woman hanging on to a floating stage. She kept trying to climb up. Every time she did, the crowd went wild. Brubeck thought they were applauding for him. He played 12 encores. His sons kept looking at him going, Dad, it's not about you. Next. So, of course, Jimmy Buffett was the most famous performer who really performed there. Usually when I speak, a quarter of the people who saw him, this is him jumping off the floating stage. He has this photograph actually up on his wall in his office behind Palm Beach. And his concert live at the Bay, 1985, you can still find DVDs of it. You can look at it on YouTube too, and it was just electric. And on your right, yes, that's Queen. Queen played there for $3 in 1975. I just checked the dates there. They played in March. They didn't release Bohemian Rhapsody until August. Next. Anybody know who this is? Well, Elvis was sort of in the building. They filmed a movie here, Clam Bake, which is actually a lot of fun. This is an early version of Photoshop. Next. So all of these things happened from 1963 to 1991. All these events, many things, and then it stopped. So people say, well, why did it stop? Because the last few years, the stadium was going downhill. And there were several reasons for it. For one, the city of Miami was managing it, and I believe cities should not do things like run hotels or restaurants or marine stadiums. I once spoke to Merritt Sterheim, and if any of you know him, he's been a senior government official in Miami for 50 years. He said one time when he became manager of the city in the early 80s, he learned that the woman who had been assigned to be his secretary was actually managing the stadium. And there were also people in Miami who would be very happy for this thing not to work, because this is a valuable piece of land. Next. So, in 1992, you had Hurricane Andrew. After Hurricane Andrew, the city said, well, the stadium's damaged by the hurricane, we have to demolish it. They got $1 million from FEMA. FEMA was just about to start the jackhammers. The insurance company for the city said, wait a minute, we're not sure about this. They did an engineering study. The engineering study said, the building's fine, the stadium was not damaged by the hurricane. There was a big furor, and then the building sat. Next. So this is really the low point in our story. In 2007, the city hired a planning firm to do a master plan of Virginia Key. And they came to a charrette of 200 people and presented the initial plan. And you can see what they said. Existing marine stadium and parking. Large parcel of land, lighted, unsafe, disrepair. Opportunities for redevelopment could be a major source of tax revenue. Well, the first question from the 200 people was, excuse me, I don't see the marine stadium on your new plan. Where is it? And the consultant said, well, we're going to demolish it. It's not feasible. It was damaged by the hurricane, which people still believe. There was a big furor, and the city said, okay, and they sort of went back to their cubbyhole. Next. So now I'm going to show you what the stadium looks like today. And I have to confess, actually, some of these photos are a few years old, but you'll get the idea. Next. So there are a lot fewer, this photo is old, there are a lot fewer seats, everything is shot. Next. The seats are shot, the railings are shot, everything's been vandalized, everything's been sitting there for a long time. Next. Actually, the portion of the structure that is most comprised is not the roof, but the wall. And yet, in spite of that, even that section we're able to repair. Next. This was another low point. This is a fireboat shooting salt water at the stadium. This is actually a photo taken by an engineering firm we had called in 2009. And if you want to damage concrete, here's how you do it. Because salt water on concrete includes chloride. The chloride seeps into the cracks. When it hits the rebar, which is the metal rusts, expands, bends. So several months later, we were meeting with the city manager, and we just put this photograph on his desk, and we said nothing. And he almost doubled over. In defense of the city, this was an honest mistake. Nobody knew. The fire department was just taking target practice, but in a deeper way, it really reflects the attitude of the city in the early days of the advocacy for this. They wanted this building to fall down. When we had meetings with the city administration, they were very clipped. We got one sentence answers. Next. In spite of that, over the last 20 years after the stadium was closed, it's become a real focus for all kinds of athletics. The Miami Rowing Club has always been there. You now have dragon boats, stand-up paddle boards, Polynesian outriggers. It's also a great area for triathlons. It's become a real important area for both everyday athletic activity and elite events. Next. Of course, the artists have discovered it. They discovered it very early. Many artists have painted there. The Marine Stadium was referred to as the Marine Stadium Pennant. Pennant is short for penitentiary, and pennant is a word that street artists use when they find a place that is sort of off the map where they can paint freely. Next. There are areas of the stadium where there are literally 200 coats of paint. People would come in, they would stake through the fence, paint, somebody would go back in and tack it. Next. They would also do the seats. Next. And photographers would follow because one person said, the Marine Stadium is like a beautiful person, it can't take a bad photo. This is a high dynamic range photograph taken by a guy named Jay Konigsberg. Next. And other artists would follow. This is a guy by the name of Todd Fox who just loved the stadium and he would put his camera on a timer to take these pictures. Basically, Miami's creative community discovered the stadium quietly between 1992 and really up till now, and they've kept this place alive and reinvented it. Next. And people wanted to go in there for fashion shoots, wedding shoots. This is a woman who has a fashion blog. I found this on the web. She snuck into the stadium, and there's a whole series of photos of her walking through the stadium. Next. And then the city of Miami learned that advertisers and ad agencies love these grungy places, and this was a shoot of a commercial actually for a new speaker for a Mac. Next. In spite of it all, the stadium still stands there proudly, abused, ignored, deserted. Next. That green stuff is just water on the roof. Next. With these views that are incredible. They're better than they were than when the stadium was operating, as Miami has just grown up. Next. With this roof that looks like it's going to fall down, but I always remember what Jack Myers said, it's not going to fall down, and all the engineering studies that have been done, he was right. Next. So, what happened? How have we gotten this thing going, and where are we? So, 11 years ago, almost to the day, January 29th, 2000, ate at a meeting of Dade Heritage Trust. If you don't know Dade Heritage Trust, it's the county preservation organization, as MDPL is the city Miami Beach Preservation Organization. We were at that meeting and we said, the Marine Stadium, what's going on with it? Let's form a group to kickstart it. And we did, and we formed a subgroup called Friends of Miami Marine Stadium, and I'll never forget the next meeting. When you have a meeting of preservation advocates, usually 5 people show up, and it's the same 5 people. When I walked into that meeting, there were 20 people, and I didn't know any of them. And I knew then that something was different. Next. So the first thing we really did was we got the building designated historic by the city of Miami. We frankly did an end around the mayor, commission, and administration. They were working on a master plan for Virginia Key. They didn't expect that this group was going to arise out of nothing and get the building designated, which would provide some level of protection, and we did. Then we immediately began contacting larger organizations to give us some credibility. So here's the World Monuments Fund, maybe the most important organization in the world devoted to architectural heritage and conservation. They named us in 2009 to their watch list, a very prestigious designation. They also provided some money for an engineering study. In the same year, the National Trust for Historic Preservation named us to their 11 most endangered list. So very shortly, we got the 2 premium designations from the 2 most significant historic preservation groups. Next. Then we began getting press. The Miami Herald did about 10 editorials in support of us. Next. Loads of press, boating magazines. Next. Architecture magazines, local, national, international. Getting press on this thing was so easy. It was just so much fun to pitch it. Next. Then we began doing events. I got a call one day from the program director of the World Monuments Fund, and he said, why don't you guys do a design contest for a new floating stage? It doesn't have to be practical, but create some buzz, get people thinking, have some fun. So we partnered with a local organization called Downtown, and we did this contest, and we had 90 entries from around the world. This is actually the 2nd place finisher. It's my favorite. This one was from Copenhagen, Denmark. That flying saucer roof flips up to become a movie screen. The other 4 members of our top 5, one was from Nebraska, one was from Toronto, one was from Warsaw, Poland, and one was from Coral Gables. Next. And this was a dinner we had to honor Jack Meyer. We did it at the Biscayne Bay Yacht Club. We had 170 people, 3 engineering organizations, his school, and I'm so thrilled we did it. Nina and I sat with Jack at the table, and he spent the whole evening taking a piece of paper, folding it, folding it, folding it. He had never experienced anything like this. 6 months later, he passed away. And that was sad, but I will forever be grateful that we gave to Jack the recognition and honor that he deserved. He's pictured there. Nina and I became very friendly with Jack and his wife Nina. He's pictured there with Tomas Regalado, the mayor of Miami. And here's a lesson for all of us who are political activists. If you want to do a big project, you need a political champion. As hard as you need somebody up there who can really work your cause. Mayor Regalado was that person. He believed in the Marine Stadium. He felt it in his gut. He was actually working on it as commissioner before we became mayor, and there are a lot of people who contributed to get us where we are, but without Mayor Regalado, who was obviously there that night, we wouldn't be anywhere. Next. So, a few months later, we got a call from Audemars Piguet, the watch company, and they said, well, Art Basel is in 4 months, and here's what we'd like to do. We have these 2 French artists, and they want to design for us a full-size, inflatable, floating Swiss chalet. We want to put it on a barge. We want to moor it opposite the Marine Stadium. We want to uplight the stadium, uplight the barge, and have all these fancy parties on it. And we said, yeah. Well, we did it. And I have to point out here, Vincent Richter, who is chairman of the board of Dade Heritage Trust, who has contributed so much to this, including this would not have happened without Vincent because he knows how to get things done. Next. So this is what it looked like the next night. It was spectacular. We had a party. It was a very controlled admission, and by 1 o'clock at night, word had gotten out, lines were around the block. If anybody here is from Manhattan, you know that New York Post, page 6, is the gossip column in town, and the headline ran, "Tier Party wows our crowd." Every year since then, we have had inquiries for Art Basel. When we get the stadium done, there will be something spectacular that will happen there every year. Audemars spent at least $500,000 on this. Next. So with all of the interest in street art, we began bringing in graffiti artists into the stadium, really from around the world. This is Logan Hicks, who's nationally known. Next. And this is an artist named Stinkfish. He's from Bogota, Colombia. You can, if you like his images, you can go to Prada and buy it on bags. That's him on the left. He refuses to be photographed Banksy style, so you're not supposed to know who he is. But we brought in 23 street artists, and we had a 7.5-minute feature story on the PBS Nightly News. Next. And we brought in a Miami artist named Hoxo. He and his crew did this in one day. Nina and I were there for it that day, and by the end of the day, they were delirious. Next. And here's Todd Fox sneaking back in. I call this one Fox and Hawks. Next. And here's Hoxo. We brought him back in to do another image. You can actually see that image now. Next. The Coral Gables Museum did a sensational exhibit with us called Concrete Paradise. We had a great exhibit, we had speakers and lectures, and History Miami liked it so much that after this exhibit closed, they said, can we have a smaller version of it? And we did. Next. And to cap off that exhibit, we had Gloria Estefan, Jimmy Buffett, and that's Emilio banging the top of a 12-inch saucepan. It was a great night. Jimmy had already cut a public service video for us. Gloria had been our spokesperson. Next. And we had a 50th birthday party for the stadium, and we celebrated by, of course, showing the movie Clam Bake. So, with all of this, after all of this effort, over 6 years, the city of Miami said to us, okay, friends of Miami Marine Stadium, we'll give you 18 months to raise $30 million. Well, that's what we asked for. And this is where our story takes a dip. Next. And here's the appropriate image for it. So we had these 18 months to raise the $30 million. We actually thought we could do it. We had identified what we thought were some individuals and naming rights sponsors who we had reason to believe would be very open to having this building named for them. Well, it didn't happen. We scrambled around. Friends of Marine Stadium ended up coming up with a development plan, which I will only describe as ill-advised. It got unanimously rejected by the City Commission. There was very ugly fallout, and this effort had failed. It was personally a really, really difficult and upsetting time as we went from being the white knight saving this building to something else. But in the disaster of all of that, there was actually a good glimmer that emerged, which is that the city decided to take over the project. I remember sitting there listening to the commissioners, and the attitude almost was, well, Friends of Miami Marine Stadium failed, but, well, we can do it. Yeah, we can do it. And so even though our group had failed in being the stewards of this building, in a larger sense, we had really helped win this major battle by getting the city, which up to this point had fought us every step in the way, to be in favor and to take on the responsibility of the stadium itself. So now I'm going to show you where things have traveled now. Next. So as part of that failed plan, it included the Miami Boat Show. And this is one of these issues, if you're an advocate, where you sort of have to make a tough decision. The boat show had to move from Miami Beach. They had to be gone because of the renovation of the building. They had decided that the stadium would be a perfect setting for them because they could do boats in the water, and they wanted to be part of this area. So, should you go with the boat show, or should you not? And I have to say, there was a coalition of groups that worked on the master plan for Virginia Key, and there was a split here. And I can only tell you my own thinking, which was, I believe that if the boat show had not come to the site, we would have lost it. This is the most valuable piece of waterfront property in Miami. I met at least 4 developers who wanted to put hotels there. From being around in the city of Miami for 6 years, I can tell you, if there had been a vacuum, with nothing else going on there, there'd be hotels and condos on that site right now. So the boat show appeared to be a good proposition. It's temporary. It ices the site. While the boat show is there, you obviously can't build anything. Personally, I felt that they were very professional. They can deal with the traffic and environmental issues, which are key. I also saw them as a natural ally. They love the stadium. It could be a signature event for us. And it would create some good allies. So we allied ourselves with the boat show. We decided to engage rather than oppose. By contrast, Key Biscayne opposed. They spent 3 years and $1 million on legal fees to stop the show. They lost. And as a non-lawyer, you could figure out why they'd lose. One city, quite simply, cannot tell another city what to do. Nevertheless, there are issues there because it takes a long time for the boat show to set up. 4.5 months. Next. And this is the original approved master plan for Virginia Key, which shows a green space. The city has now hired a landscape designer to develop that space, but the issue is, how can you develop space meaningful if there is a show there for 4 months a year? So nobody knows quite what to do. Next. And also complicating the fact is not only do they build big up on land, but they have docks, floating docks. The docks now can hold 800 slips. It is the largest temporary floating dock installation in the world. This does not make the basin users happy. The rowers use about half of their rowing course. And this, right now, will impact the Marine Stadium because this is 4.5 months during peak time where access to the stadium is going to be impaired. So what's going to happen? I don't know. Over the next few years, this issue will have to be parsed. There are really several ways it can work. Some may involve the boat show, some may not. I wouldn't dare predict what's going to happen, but it's really the next major challenge for this project. Next. Well, in any event, we did decide to work with the boat show rather than box. We wanted to leverage the boat show's strength as much as we could. So for 3 years, we had booths and a booth at the stadium, and we signed up literally 1,000 people. And these 3 people there are sort of the 3-legged stool of our now advocacy. I'm on the right, in the blue jacket. I run a Facebook page, and I'm sort of a free agent moving in between all of these groups. In the middle is Christine Rupp, the executive director of Dade Heritage Trust. DHT has long been involved in the stadium. And to the left is Jason Clement. He's the director of marketing for the National Trust. The Trust has been working with us for 9 years, and we're so fortunate that of all of the projects they do nationwide, they have probably spent more effort on our building than anything else. Next. Well, through our involvement at the boat show, here's another good thing happened. We were introduced to Heineken, which was the beer sponsor. And Heineken said to us, we want to be involved with the Marine Stadium. We've done crowdfunding campaigns in other cities for projects. We'd like to do a crowdfunding campaign for you. So they collaborated with the National Trust 2 years ago. We sold seats from the stadium, other paraphernalia. All told, we raised over $100,000. But to me, the more important part of that effort is the fact that we finally got a great global brand that figured out that the Marine Stadium is a sensational opportunity for advertising. We have the coolest building in the hottest city around. And Heineken learned that. They did an internet video on the stadium that went viral with 39 million views. I read the advertising reports, and social media and the media hits were off the charts. Heineken wants to continue working with the stadium. In fact, they're in town next week to discuss some plans. And this is very important for the commercial viability of the stadium. Next. Well, Heineken had some extra seats. And we figured we can't let those seats go to waste. So we had an idea. We know artists of all types love the Marine Stadium. Why don't we give these seats to artists? Let them create art with found objects and ask them for photographs and artist statements of the seats. And we can start a whole new way that the stadium will inspire Miami's art community. So we've been doing that for 2 years, and we have 60 seats completed. And I'm going to show you a few of the next generation of art inspired by the stadium. And I'd like to thank Angela Shilakoff. Is she here? Okay, well, she's been a great supporter and very involved in this. And a disc jockey, VJ Cyber Pixie, who's helped us out. I'm really excited. Can't wait to show you some of these things. You're among the first to see what we got. Next. So this is Bibi Andrade, a local artist. This is a semi-self-portrait from a series, The Adventures of Bibi. Next. And this is Jane Krupp, who's in the room, and this piece is Waterline. And it's meant to be the waterline between whether the Marine Stadium will sink or swim, and she's treated the metal and the seats themselves in different ways. Next. This is Ray Charles, who played at the stadium. This is Newton Wallace, and on the upper right-hand corner, you see actually a ticket from the Marine Stadium stub. Next. We have a number of environmental pieces. This is Becca Butler, who used to sail in the basin. So this is really using the seats as a great coral reef. Next. And this is Robert Sylvain, who regarded the Marine Stadium as really like a throne to view all of these events. He's Haitian. By the way, all of our artists are really diverse. You notice all these tools. There's a wrench, there's a rake. They all came from his backyard. And they all have a mystical meaning. And this whole seat is really sort of mystical to me. Next. This is a more abstract take. This one is meant to be taking directions from an IKEA assembly platform. I think it's really beautiful. It's really an example of color field. Next. And this is Monique Lazoy, and who's actually in Miami from the Netherlands. Learned to paint at the Royal Academy, a very classical technique, almost reminds me of Escher. People viewing events from the seats. Well, the two main things that everybody remembers from the stadium are Jimmy Buffett and boat racing, and we have terrific seats from each. Next. So, this answers the question of what if the creature from The Shape of Water was in the basin listening to a Jimmy Buffett concert, saw Jimmy dive in, decided it was good, came out, became a Parrothead fan, bought all the paraphernalia, and wanted to rock the night away. Next. There he is. Next. That was Paul Soliday, and here is Doug Hancock, who loved boat racing, and this is just amazing. You can see that pane of glass with the photograph of boats. That concrete base, which looks like it was ripped out of the Marine Stadium, he made it himself. He built the mold, he put in the rebar, he poured the concrete, he graffitied the base. And in addition to all of that, this is an interactive piece because you sit in that seat, you push the button, and you hear an audio of the unlimited hydroplanes racing at Marine Stadium. We also had photos of artists in their seat. This is Courtney Einhorn capturing some of the graffiti colors. Next. This is Edna Saiz. This is the Who in concert. They played there. You don't see it, but she actually, on another seat, she actually built a whole Marine Stadium. Next. These are students from a high school, G. Holmes Braddock. We had a number of schools participate. Each slat is a different year in the stadium. Next. This is Paul and the Creature. Next. And this is Bob Rosengarten. And the theme of this one is the crowd awaits the opening. If you notice, the license plate is Florida 1963. That's the date the stadium was opened. It went all over the internet to find it. And I have to say that our artists have really worked and looked everywhere. They've done amazing jobs and they were really inspired. So where we are now is that we're beginning to build a website. We're looking for some exhibition spaces. We have some possible ones. If you have any ideas, please let us know. Next. Well, obviously we've gotten the advocacy going, and then this happened 2 years ago. City Commission designates $45 million for Marine Stadium restoration. And I'll never forget how this happened. Regalado had put this on the commission agenda. He worked for it. We'd done some significant lobbying. And when we were in the commission meeting, this item was bundled up with 2 or 3 other items. There was no public comment. There was no city presentation. There was no discussion by the city commission. Within 5 seconds, it was whistled through, and those of us who were there, Vincent, I don't know if you were there that day, but we walked out of there in a daze. Just said, what just happened? Well, is this good? Well, you bet it is. But we're not done. We have a couple more approvals to go through. The city commission will change up in November. So while we have good momentum, there are still serious issues to be had. Next. Well, after this, the wheels have been turning. The city hired the architect. It's Richard Heisenbottle. He's in yellow. I don't know if he's here. Richard Heisenbottle's firm is probably the foremost preservation firm in Miami. They've done Vizcaya and Gusman. That's Hilario Candela, the original architect, standing just, if you look on the left, that's him. And I think it's pretty cool to have the architect who designed this building in 1962 to be working on its restoration in 2019. Yes, there are a gaggle of consultants because it's not that simple. You have 2 types of engineers: concrete restoration, concrete conservation, lighting, audio, theater design. Next. So the first thing they did was a phase 1 inspection of the building. What condition is it? What's it going to cost to renovate? Can it work? What do we have to do to comply with code? A charrette, what you can use it for. This took 6 months. Next. And that, by the way, is a graffiti of Hilario. And after 6 months, they came to the conclusion that the stadium can be renovated within budget. There are a variety of events that can be held there, and that the building can work. And the city commission then approved unanimously, okay, go forward with the design phase. Next. Well, a portion of all of this is the concrete restoration, or concrete conservation, because there are 2 things you cannot do. You can't just paint the building, and frankly, we cannot leave the graffiti. As much as people like some of it, there are 200 coats of graffiti, as I mentioned, and frankly, that traps the chloride and leads to the deterioration of the building itself. So you have to remove the graffiti, but you have to figure out how to do that. You also have to be able to clean the concrete, and then you have to be able to patch it. And those things are more complicated than you would think. That's in green, Rosa Lowinger, whose firm really headed up the conservation effort. And they tested many things, different types of chemicals, spraying water, spraying other substances to see what would work best. Next. Kelly, I don't know if Kelly Chicola is here. She's on the team, but she's part of this. And by the way, this started before Richard Heisenbottle's work because we got funded for this for a grant from the Getty Foundation, which is probably the most important architectural conservation organization in the world. And it's interesting, the Getty Foundation had a pilot program of grants to figure out best practices to restore concrete in modern buildings. We got a very large grant. Some of the other buildings included in that cycle were the Salk Institute by Louis Kahn, Frank Lloyd Wright's Farnsworth House, and the Sydney Opera House. So if you would ask the Getty Foundation, should the Marine Stadium be on the same plane as the Sydney Opera House, they would say, you bet. And one of the guys who worked on this effort was a guy named John Fiedler, who for 25 years was head of a Conservation for English Heritage, which is responsible for 400 monuments in Great Britain, including 66 castles, Hadrian's Wall, and Stonehenge. And he would regale us with stories of dealing with the Queen of England, about replacing a rug in Buckingham Palace. And they actually presented the stadium at a conservation conference in London, and of course it was the hit of the show. This is all, we are a long way from salt water being sprayed on the stadium by a fireboat. People in the world realize what they got. Next. Next. So Richard Heisen, next, those are more of cleaning. Richard Heisen model has done his design phase, and I'm going to show you what the renderings of a restored Brink Stadium are. These are the city of Miami. He's now waiting to go ahead for the third phase, which is construction drawings and permitting. Next. So that's the above view, and it's been very carefully thought out with Uber pickups and a way to bring trucks in and out for loading the floating stage on the right-hand side. Next. The entrance is really important. You'll be able to see it from Rickenbacker Causeway. Next. There'll be video screens on the stadium to show events if there's an overflow crowd. Also to show images of our street art, because that's the way we're going to preserve it. We had actually asked artists at a conference sponsored by the Getty, do you want to have new walls to do painting? And they said no. We'd rather go to other rougher plates. So that's the way we keep those images alive. But remember, we now have the Stadium Seats project. And in addition to the 60 artists who've completed their seats, we've got another 3,000 seats in the stadium that when the stadium is renovated, we can dole out. So the issue with a building like this, you can't keep it the same, you just have to keep reinventing things. Next. Is the view towards the causeway. Next. And here's the floating stage, and the floating stage has to be carefully designed. In the old days, Vincent and I know the guy who did the Jimmy Buffett concert, and he would say, concerts back then, you just show up, put up the speakers. Now you do a concert, the act will send you a book that's 2 inches thick of all of their production requirements. So this is going to be a stage for the 21st century. Next. More views. Next. This is behind it. Both Vincent and I believe that there should be LED screens on it so that boats can moor there behind it and view the concert as well. That's a great revenue source. Next. So here's what the whole thing would look like. Ignore that building to the right. That's the Welcome Center. That's very much unsettled. I'm not sure it's going to be sited there. Next. And here's the way it looked originally. So you can see it hasn't changed much. And we are so lucky that we can thread the needle and make this building work within the historic envelope, because the stadium and the basin are designated historic by the city of Miami, and they're also on the National Register of Historic Places. So we can restore it within historic preservation standards, but it also works for the 21st century. So the next step the city is doing now is they just issued a request for proposals for an operator. This to me is really the most important thing. The city operated this building before, it didn't succeed, it needs professional management. Responses are due in about a month. I am aware of at least 2 organizations that are totally capable of running this place who will be responding. The city will use the open venue model, which means that they'll rent it out. So what types of events are going to be held there? Well, we actually have a pretty good idea. Next. Well, for one thing, we hope boat racing. Probably on a very limited basis. We actually had a boat race there last April. It was the first race in 26 years. It was very meaningful and exciting when we saw it. Now, what people have, I know, been concerns raised is, well, is this environmentally sound? Is there any risk to marine mammals? And the answer is actually not. Boat racing is a very regulated sport. you could not boat race in the Sandusky Critical Wildlife Area. And there are very special rules and criteria and safeguards you have to do. This particular promoter has done 200 races in 15 countries, including 23 in Florida, and he's never had a problem. In fact, he actually was only able to run one heat of the big boats over 2 days because there was one dolphin in the basin. Now, as a practical matter, I don't think a dolphin has ever been hit in a boat race, and I don't think a manatee hasn't either. But he wanted to be so careful, and he put so much energy and time into making sure this was done right. He didn't really promote it. His attendance wasn't very good, but he was still very gratified with the turnout he had, so he will be back. Next. But it's not just boat racing. Remember all the athletic activities that I mentioned to you. Dragon boat racing is the fastest growing outdoor spectator sport in the world. This is SOS, the Save Our Sisters Dragon Boat team. They're from Miami. They're a great group. The woman who heads it is named Kim Bonomo. She is a real powerhouse. She did a race in Sarasota with 175 breast cancer survivor teams from all over the world. She wants to do one in Miami. I think, of course, the great opportunity is you can combine these events. There's a lot of slack time in boat racing, so you can have an event that really celebrates Miami on the water with race boats, dragon boats, sculling boats on a stake race. Next. And this is something that you should know about. Long distance swimming. It just so happens that next May, the most important open water swim event in the United States ever is going to take place at the Marine Stadium. It's a big deal. The winners of this race go on to the Olympics, and I have to hand it to the promoter, Jonathan Strauss, who spoke 10 years ago at an event we had called The Future of Miami Marine Stadium. There's a great opportunity for these high-level athletic events, triathlons, also to add an education component to it. A few years ago, Adidas sponsored a concert during Art Basel. You know, we're going to be able to do things that nobody else can do. Next. But of course, the thing that will probably be the bread and butter for this thing, the revenue generator, and revenue is important to the city, is concerts. This will be one of the great concert venues in the world. Vincent Richter and I have had the privilege of taking in some of the most well-known entertainment executives and producers anywhere, and to a person they'll tell you they're just stunned. I remember Vincent, especially Kevin, the producer of Live Earth, which is the largest set of simultaneous concerts the world has ever seen. It was done in support of global warming initiatives. Kevin uplighted the Eiffel Tower green. And on the boat ride back, Kevin just kept saying to us, I don't understand it. Why is this sitting here? Why isn't this done? When is this going to be done? And my own confidence doesn't come from me. It comes from bringing in so many of these people, smart, educated, really successful people. They all say the same thing. Next. Then, next, what's fun is to think about what is the next generation. And this was put together by ACT Productions. I don't know if Barbara or Bruce is here. They're one of the finest producers of events in South Florida. They're in Miami Beach. They did the 100th birthday party for Miami Beach. They do Polo on the Beach, Orange Bowl halftime show. They did the Audemars Piguet event. And there is an incredible fascination with water. Cirque du Soleil, for example, has a water show in Las Vegas called O. You can project holograms on the water. By the way, Guy Laliberté, probably pronouncing it wrong, the founder of Cirque du Soleil, is doing a project in Magic City. Will he want to move Cirque du Soleil to Miami? I don't know. Next. You saw next images of Tupac Shakur that were done last year. Symphony and fireworks, synchronized fireworks, which is done in Vancouver. Drone racing. We can't imagine the types of things that will be done here. Next. And then there's this. Yes, this is a floating soccer field. It exists. It's in Singapore, and there's actually a funny story to it. Everybody is familiar with David Beckham. His 5-year search for a soccer venue. Well, the first place he actually looked at was the Marine Stadium. He had been given a tour 5 years ago of Miami, saw a bunch of things, not terribly excited by anything. Then he had a boat ride to Miami, and he saw the stadium, and he flipped out. And his partner, Simon Fuller, who produced American Idol, he also flipped out. And they contacted our group. They said, so you're working on the stadium? And we met with them. They knew all about Singapore, and they were very excited. And we said, oh, by the way, we have renderings. And they said, well, we want to see them. Can we see them tomorrow? And we said, yes. And this is what we showed them. Next. This is a rendering that our renderer had done a year earlier for the bar area. And the renderer said, I want this bar populated with beautiful people. Who's the most beautiful people I know? It's David and Victoria Beckham. And when we showed this image to them, David Beckham's childhood friend absolutely keeled over. And we said we couldn't have done this if we had planned it. As a practical matter, the stadium is way too small for soccer, and they realized that. But you could do exhibition tennis matches, exhibition volleyball matches, basketball. We really don't know. Next. Anybody know what this is? Highline, right. And this is significant for a number of reasons. As I'm sure many of you know, it was an abandoned elevated freight railway in the southern tip of Manhattan, which was turned into a lineal park. It is fabulously successful. By the first month, they had already gotten more visitors they were intending to for the first year. And for all the events that we've talked about with the Marine Stadium, a very, very subtle one is this. The Marine Stadium can actually be a great park. Right now, there's a lot of debate about how you design the park in front of the stadium and so forth and so on. But the thing is, the Marine Stadium itself can be the park. And I hope that people pick up on that, because as a passive space, it's amazing. And the first person, by the way, to realize that was the visionary developer, Tony Goldman, who really was probably more responsible for Ocean Drive and Wynwood, and the Wynwood walls than anybody else. For years, the stadium didn't have a guard, and during that time, you couldn't keep people out of there. They kept cutting holes through the fence, and not just to do graffiti, but hang out. And 6 years ago, there was a rowing regatta, a small regatta. The city had left the gate open, and everybody on the beach, they just streamed into the stadium. And they 200-300 people in there. And why not? You have a comfortable seat. You have shade, which you need in Miami. You're inside this architectural masterpiece. You have incredible views, better views than you can ever get on the land. The kids loved it. It was a giant playground running up and down the ramps in between the columns. And if you want to get exercise, well, do what the rowers did. Run up and down the steps. This can be a passive park, open during non-event days too. Next. So this is Robert Hammond. He's the current executive director of the High Line. He was one of the two co-founders of the group Friends of the High Line, and Phil Aaron's the founding chair. We brought him to Miami. He spoke on our behalf. He's a big believer in the stadium. And by the way, their effort has spawned so many things, including the wonderful underline here, the Ludlam Trail. There are projects all around the country, because what the High Line has taught us all is that sometimes conventional wisdom says you can't do certain things, and it's often right, but sometimes it's wrong. And we believe it was wrong on the Marine Stadium, and we think we're going to be as successful as the High Line. Next. And this, by the way, is Joshua David. He's the other co-founder of Friends of the High Line. He was, for a while, the executive director of the World Monuments Fund, another big supporter of ours. He was down last year, and he would tell you the same thing. So, next. So, and this is one more organization. This is a group called Tourism Cares. It's a not-for-profit organization funded by the travel industry, and they do volunteer projects at various sites around the country, at Gettysburg, Valley Forge, and we brought them to Virginia Key. We had 125 volunteers cleaning up the stadium, another 100 planting 800 trees on Virginia Key Beach, and another 100 planting 30,000 COs on North Point. What's important about this is to attract Tourism Cares. We partnered with Virginia Key Beach, the Black Historic Beach, and the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau. And we packaged Virginia Key as a whole entity to Tourism Cares. And we've now worked with Virginia Key Beach on a number of things, and we want to continue to on our Seats project, that when we work together, good things happen. And that's the way we want to keep going. We believe, like Virginia Key Beach, we are the two anchors of Virginia Key. By the way, the woman on the left in the red is Carolyn Caseglia. She's an executive at Amadeus. She was on the board at the time from Miami, helped bring us in, and she's now co-chair of the Tourism Cares. Next. So I'm now just going to end with some images here, renderings in real life. And what's interesting is that often renderings are not as good, or renderings are better than the real thing. That's not the case here. So here's the stadium. Next. And here it was lit up a few years ago by the National Trust for Historic Preservation board meeting. Next. Next. Here is that image that you saw before of Miami in the early 60s. Next. Here's what it is 10 years ago. What a sensational view. It's a lot better now than it looks like in that photo. Next. Here's the stadium. Next. No matter when you see it, it's so great to be there at dusk as the lights come on one by one. Next. Next. Anybody know who this is? Correct. This is Allen Ginsberg speaking at the Marine Stadium in January of 1970. There's an interesting story, but I want to talk about what it felt like to be there. I'm going to read just a little bit of a memory from a guy named Walter Sakata who saw this particular event, and he also saw Ginsberg a couple of years later at the Republican convention in Miami Beach when they were both in jail. And this goes back to what I said about this building creating magical moments. I remember Allen Ginsberg poetry reading at the Marine Stadium during a beautifully overcast night with wispy cirrus clouds playing above him. He performed on a floating barge in front of the stadium, and it was a performance, not a reading. He was disheveled, very animated, and really into it. He then describes an event of being in jail with Ginsberg during the Republican National Convention in 1972, and he concludes, "The yin and the yang of those two events involving Ginsberg will always be linked in my mind. The emotional days of the protest with him finding his life partner, and watching him perform on a floating stage at the Miami Marine Stadium on a gorgeous moonlit night." The fact is, we have now 170 stories, performers, boat racers, people who attended events, 5 mayors, people who work there. And if you read all of these stories, you can't but help but come away with the fact that this place is special. People have special magical moments, and you just can't really duplicate a place like this. And that's why we want it back. Next. Next. And I'm going to end with this image. So I was having lunch one day with Hilario Candela and Jack Meyer, and Hilario had actually done these renderings with a renderer, and I asked him about this. Hilario, what is this? And he said, oh, that was opening night at the Marine Stadium, December 27th, 1963. They had the Tommy Bartlett Water Show. They had a 17-piece jazz orchestra, a 40-person choir singing selections from Deflatabouts, Navy SEALs parachuting, and fireworks. And I said to Hilario, well, how do you know what it looked like? You were in the stadium. And he said, no, I wasn't. I couldn't get a ticket. And Jack Meyer said, I couldn't get a ticket either. So Hilario drove around to the edge of the stadium in his car, and this is what he saw. Hilario at the time was at the dawn of his career. He went on to become president of Spillis Candela, the largest architectural Hispanic-owned firm in the United States, doing building all over Latin America and the US, doing all campuses of Miami-Dade College, but this is the building he cares about. So for those of us who've worked on the stadium, we envision opening night. That's what keeps us going, and I'll tell you, describe to you what I imagine it will be like. You walk in, And if you're near a stairwell, you look down and you see water. Because 1/3 of this building is built over the water, and Hilario left the stairwells open so you can experience the environment. You look up. You see this crazy origami roof. It's the length of a football field. You look straight, and you look east. You see the Sadowski Critical Wildlife Area. You see the Twinkies of Key Biscayne. Then you look west to Miami. And the way I always describe it, remember the movie The Wizard of Oz? Remember when Dorothy and her friends leave the forest, and there's the rolling fields, and there's the Emerald City. It's just stunning. It just takes your breath away. So there'll be some event at the stadium, and I don't know what it'll be, but you know there's one thing we can do in Miami, it's produce a party. And at the end of it, people will say, wow, that's great. What's next? I want to come back. Then they'll say, well, I'm really proud of this place, because everybody likes to feel a lot of civic pride. And they'll say, you can only do this in Miami, and I will promise you this is going to get big press when it happens. And if somebody in London or Los Angeles or New Orleans or wherever says, Brink Stadium, what a neat idea. I think I'd like one of them. Well, good luck. Good luck finding a city. Good luck doing anything like this. And then people will say, and we thought this thing was a white elephant. We almost demolished it because this building has been almost demolished a half a dozen times. Were we nuts? But we didn't demolish it. We pulled it out of the fire at the last minute. We've got it. Now we can reinvent it for the future and do all these things, and who knows what else is, and more. So, if you believe you want that moment, go to Facebook, sign up, Restore Marine Stadium, know where we can lecture, let me know, have contacts that can be useful, let us know, and we can do this. Thank you very much.
We do have time for a couple of questions. We will be hosting a talk at 3 o'clock, which is in about 20 minutes. The director of the Wolfsonian, Tim Rogers, is going to be giving that talk. In the meantime, did anyone have any questions? I can bring the mic to you.
How many people did it hold?
6,500. In its new form, it will hold about 6,000 plus boats. It's actually a good size. It's a mid-level arena. We don't really have anything like that in Miami, so it's a good competitive size.
Who will Berkshire be the next one in
They would like to be there. There are environmental and traffic concerns. The city has basically given them 1 year to do it right or not. We'll all learn. I do know that in the interest of moving the Marine Stadium forward, we want to present to their audience with videos and gather information, because we're still in an advocacy role. We need all the support we can get.
How will staging for the major events that we see happening all the time affect the renovation plans? I mean, you've got 4.5 months of the boat show, and then you have Ultra or other events. How are you going to be able to continue the renovations?
I don't know, Sonny, I don't know if you were there. Good question. Don't know. Serious issues. I can see several different ways it can work. This is sort of the next step in this whole thing. That's going to have to be worked through. It's a serious issue.
National Trust still involved in so
I spoke to Jason yesterday. We're working on a new set of marketing plans with Heineken. The trust has just been great. They've helped us with grants, they helped us with Gloria, they provided as much expertise and assistance as they can, and most important, having a group like the Trust and the World Monuments Fund, it's third-party validation with this local little group. It's another suggestion for anybody who's an advocate. If you're a startup group and nobody believes you, try to get some organization or person with real prestige and clout to endorse you. William.
Don, that was an excellent presentation, and it brought back wonderful memories for me. I remember all of that.
I remember the beginning. And I wish, although I only live here now part-time, I wish you well. And I think you're finally on the road to recovering something that we should have brought back a long time ago.
We're working on it, sort of if you ever want to be inspired as an advocate of anything, go read quotes from Thomas Edison. One of my favorite is, and it certainly applies to this project, I haven't failed, I just found 10,000 ways that don't work. What? Sonny?
What are plans for storage of the floating stage? I mean, that is one of the most fabulous aspects of this venue. But it can't stay there.
No, it can't. No, it can't. Yeah, Sonny will work exactly like the old one. If you know, across the way, there's this little concrete slip.
It's too little now.
It's going to fit in there. It will stick out, but it's not going to be any wider than it is now. So it will fit in there. Because of the environmental restrictions, you could not widen that concrete slot anyway. So again, it's why we're, in a certain sense, we're able to thread the needle. We're so lucky that we believe we can make this thing work within the historic preservation envelope of not altering things in that basin. Next.
Yeah, hi. So I want to say first, I'm a teacher at Mass Academy, the school that's right there. And kind of disheartening, right, to me that like the students that were showed that were not involved, or that were involved, and with like the seats and stuff, none of which were from the school, which is right there. Because the trail, the basin, the marine stadium, all of that is an integral part of our maritime school. Like the maritime school in Miami is our school. Miami Rowing Club mentioned, some other things mentioned, not our school. So I wanted to just say, right, so you know that there are teachers and there's a student population that would definitely be integral and be motivated to help their community and to help make the Marine Stadium into something that can be lasting for them to enjoy, for the prosperity to enjoy afterwards. I'll be willing to give my information so I can share this. I know there's a student here who I didn't realize was one of our students, another teacher at the school, my wife, but I know it's something that would be very important to us and to our population. We'd love to have you give this presentation at our school in front of our students if that's something you'd be interested in. I know it's a lot of ideas, a lot of things to say.
I'd like to respond to you because your points are valid. You should know that in terms of the seats, we work with Mabel Morales, who's head of the Department of Arts and Visual from Miami-Dade School County. They reached out to all of the schools in Miami-Dade, including Mast Academy. We had one student at Mast who did a seat. And we will have more seats, and hopefully we can involve Mast more. I know for the floating stage contest, we actually had 10 entries from Mast Academy. And about 6 years ago, I gave 2 presentations at Mast to 300 people each. I would love to come back there. I'd love to speak to you afterwards. I would love to engage Mast as much as possible, and I'm pleased to have a direct contact there.
Yeah, this year I actually started an architecture and design club in Mass Academy, so that could also help promote the...
I would love to come out and do a presentation for your class. I know a few years ago I did another school way west, and they had entered a redesign of the Marine Stadium in a very high-level construction development contest. They ultimately were in the semifinals, and they went to Washington. And I did, we had 5 classes who picked up seats from Miami-Dade County. Mabel Morales and I were frankly disappointed at the response. I think the reason was these wooden seats, they're heavy, they don't come on bases, they weren't easy to work with. What we also have in the stadium are about 2,000 plastic seats, plastic backs. Those are very, very easy to work with. I know we'll do a program with History Miami. They have a family fun day every month. So I want to talk with you after because I'd love to we can come up with some more ideas on student projects with Mass. That'd be great. Other questions?
I was going to say thank you for your years of continuing support, and you said over 100 lectures on this, and you deserve a round of applause.
Well, it's a wonderful project, and in a world which really not right now isn't all that happy. I'm not saying the Marine Stadium will cure cancer, but anything that can provide all kinds of people with joy is not a bad thing.